untuk ikut serta dalam membangkitkan perekonomian Indonesia. Dan kini, mereka yang tak pernah lepas untuk selalu berperan dalam membantu dan membangun negeri demi Indonesia yang lebih maju dan demi memberikan pelayanan yang terbaik. Karena mereka adalah Pos Indonesia.
Siapapun bisa mengajar, tapi tak semuanya bisa menjadi guru. Semua orang bisa menolong sesama, tapi tak semuanya bisa mengemban amanah. Siapa saja bisa menjadi abdi negara, tapi belum tentu mengabdi dengan dedikasi.
Dengan jaminan pasti dan layanan terbaik, Taspen hadir untuk Anda, pahlawan bangsa.
reception dinner of the Y20 Indonesia Summit 2022. We hope that you are having a great time. So we had performances and all, and now let's get a bit serious. I understand that a lot of you have very bright ideas, and it's time for us to now listen to some ideas as well. So, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as we are moving to our next agenda tonight, please stay with us for the sharing session and second talk show of the Y20. Ladies and gentlemen, on our sharing session, we will have a discussion with the co-founder of Pipiltin Coco, one of Tokopedia merchants. And on the second talk show, we will be talking about digital transformation. And before we start, let me introduce you our moderator today. So our moderator is Mr. Neil Swanepoel. He is currently completing an internship at the United Nations in Namibia. He is a recent graduate from the University of Cape Town, where his research focused on public diplomacy and China-Africa relations. At university, he served in several leadership positions that developed his interest and commitment to diplomacy and youth empowerment. Neil has worked as parliamentary reporter in South Africa and served as a 2021 IMF Youth Fellow, an experience which advanced his knowledge of the digital economy and technology policy. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we invite our moderator to the stage, South African delegate to Y20 Indonesia 2022, Mr. Neil Swanepoel.
Selamat malam. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be standing here in front of you tonight. Welcome to all delegates and visitors in the room and to all those joining virtually. My name is Neil Swanepoel. I am the Digital Transformation Track delegate from South Africa, and it's a warm greeting that I give to you today on Nelson Mandela Day, as it were, as well. Now, as someone born in the late 90s, I'm pretty young. I consider myself pretty cool. I've got 300 followers on Instagram. I know how to use hashtags. I've downloaded the Gojek and Pluang apps since I've come to Indonesia. But if there's one way to make someone my age feel old, it's if you try and ask someone born in the 2010s if they remember these guys. CDs and DVDs. I mean, I remember they were so sleek, they were so cool when we got them. I remember my first DVD, my first CD. But if you were to ask anyone born post-2010 what it was, I mean, it's a relic. It's going to be in a future museum sometime. So these type of transformations, digital transformations of technology, it can sometimes change the way we live, whether that be in finance, whether that be in media, and as we'll soon find out, even when we're making and selling chocolate. And that is why I think tonight's theme for the talk show, which is managing the disruptions of digital transformation, is so interesting and so relevant. Now, we have a super excited agenda, something a bit different than usual for you tonight. We're first going to kick off with the pre-talk show with the amazing Tissa Onila, who is the co-founder of Pipiltin Coco. And after our one-on-one session, I'm going to call up our esteemed panel of speakers to join me on stage, where we're going to have a really robust and engaging conversation at the topic on hand. I'll then conclude the discussion. Guests tuning in from Zoom, we won't have time for a Q&A session. But we really do encourage you to take the conversation past dinner and into the future. Now, without further ado, I'd like to invite our first guest, Ms. Tissa Onila. Tissa, it's lovely to have you here. And
It's
to
lovely
talk
to
you
be
tonight.
here. Thank you very much.
So preparing for this, you've got quite a brick and mortar business. It didn't used to be digitalized, the
True.
making of chocolate. So first, let me just introduce you and give you all Tissa's bio. So Tissa is the co-founder of Pippleton Cocoa. Like I said, it's an inclusive business, a bean-to-bar chocolate company from Indonesia. Tissa took a master chocolatier program in Switzerland. She's an ASEAN Young Business Leader Initiative member. And prior to founding Pippleton, Tissa was a corporate lawyer, and she has a master's degree in law and economics. So the first question I'd like to ask you, Tissa, is can you walk us through Pippleton Cocoa's digital transformation journey? Specifically, share with us the considerations, the challenges, the processes from the beginning, and how it has impacted Pippleton's business today.
All right. Thank you very much. It's a very good question. Actually, I have that CD that you're
You
having.
do?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
You can tell my age by that.
You can listen to it afterwards.
Right. So now, maybe first I would like to introduce Pippleton first. So
Please.
Pippleton Cocoa is a chocolate factory. We are based in Jakarta, Indonesia. And we source the cocoa bean directly from the farmers from 6 different regions in Indonesia now. From Aceh, from Bali, from East Java, from Flores, East Kalimantan, and from West Papua. So why 6? Because just like coffee, different chocolate from different regions have distinctive flavors. For example, Bali chocolate has fruity notes. Aceh chocolate has more robust like tobacco flavor. Flores more like spices. Is Kalimantan has citrus honey flavor. It's amazing. It's all comes from the cocoa beans. That's why we source directly from the farmers, because we want to make sure the traceability, the sustainability, and again to make sure the quality of the chocolates. So now Indonesia is currently the 6th largest cocoa bean producer in the world. We used to be number 3, but we dropped to number 6. It's a long story, but one of the reason being there's no awareness of like good Indonesian chocolate in Indonesia. Like locals didn't know that Indonesia produced cocoa. Even though in 2000 and 2009 we are the 3rd cocoa beans producer in the world. By then I was a corporate lawyer before, so I didn't know that fact. I just know that fact when I'm being like the chocolate maker. So it's also interesting that there's little Indonesian locals know their own products. That's one of the reasons that we established Pippleton Cocoa. And during the pandemic, our sales actually dropped by 60% because we haven't focusing on online. That's why we're shifting. We're lucky that we shift quite fast to online, and we are building a team, and we're learning fast about digital marketplace. And then we are selling our products in Tokopedia, the largest marketplace in Indonesia. And by that time, we learned a lot, like in a very short time. By Tokopedia, we can really, share and broaden our market. And even now, our sales increased like 50% compared before the pandemic, because of the digital transformation. So it really helps us a lot with that, yeah.
That's an incredible improvement, especially after you were so hard hit by the pandemic. So now I want to ask you, Tissa, as for your company, would you say that after the past 2 years, did you see digital transformation as a big disruption or as an opportunity for your business? And if it's the latter, if you saw it as an opportunity, how do you think other businesses like Pippleton can embrace digital transformation and succeed like you did?
I think digital transformation are obviously opportunities, like next level. And now we're working with Tokopedia. Is one of the reason is we have the same value with them, because we want to make sure that we also local products and services can compete with others local other product and services from outside of Indonesia. We want to make sure that Indonesians know their value. And now with the opportunity, we really use the platform to broaden our market, to grow our market. And in this term, we have this program, we call it Program 1000 Bibit. It means campaign of 1,000 seeds, because one of the reason Indonesia dropped to number 6 from number 3 being the cocoa producing countries, because we need more trees, we need more cocoa trees. So we have the program and we launched it in Tokopedia. So for 40,000 products sold, there's 1,000 cocoa seeds we give to the farmers. And it's already completed, the program, and it exceeds the target. So by that program, by that campaign, we really want the customers to also, include the awareness of the importance of, taking care of our own farmers, to taking care of sustainability. Because again, when we're talking about sustainability in Indonesia, it's not really relevant to the customers. It's hard to, to raise awareness. We cannot force them to understand the concept of sustainability, right? So we need to find another angle. So we need to make it fun, make it relatable. And I think it's one of the biggest challenge for us now. So by digital transformation, we can convey the message more truly. We can reach more customers outside of the customers that we have right now. Yeah.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, and I think through your business, you're also, like you mentioned, you're touching on other Y20 priorities about sustainability, about employment. So we wish you all the best, Tissa. Thank you so much for our little pre-talk chat. I've really enjoyed it, and yeah, let's have a.
And I hope you already taste the chocolate. You have it in your
I
room.
think all the delegates here tonight can attest that your chocolates all taste very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tissa.
Thank
Can we
you.
all give a big round of applause to Tissa?
Thank you.
Well, everyone, I think what we've seen from Tissa's story is that technology is solving a lot of problems to a lot of issues, to a lot of businesses, especially as we recover from COVID. But it also creates new problems. And one thing that we can be sure of that won't change is that the speed and scale of digital transformation is just set to keep skyrocketing. And the fundamental changes that this will make in how we live and how we interact will have trade-offs. It'll have winners and losers. And so the question I want to ask tonight, the questions, is how can we ensure that people, especially the young and the marginalized, don't fall through the cracks in this new process? How can the digital transformation journey be more inclusive? How can youth be at the forefront of digital transformation and lead it as well? I'm joined by an absolutely stellar group of people tonight to tackle these issues and unpack these fascinating topics, to just understand how we can deepen youth role in digital governance and mitigating the disruptions caused by digital transformation. So I'm going to call the bios, and as I start the biographies for the speakers, you're more than welcome to come up and join me on stage. So I will start with our first panelist, is Maudi Ayunda. She has a multitude of roles. He currently serves as a G20 spokesperson. From singer, songwriter, actress, producer to creator, educator, angel investor, and aspiring entrepreneur. Maudie graduated from Stanford University with a joint degree program, earning an MBA and an MBA in education. She has a life mission to keep growing with a unilinear passion. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I would then like to call on Monica Wilhardia. Monica is a visiting fellow at the ISIAS Yusuf Ishak Institute and a former World Bank economist. In 2017, she was seconded to the Executive Office of the President of the Republic of Indonesia as a senior advisor to the Deputy Chief of Staff of Economic Affairs. She has represented Indonesia at the T20 during the Los Cabos, St. Petersburg, and Brisbane G20s. A very warm welcome.
Thank you.
Then I want to please introduce Ronnie Hutahayan. He currently serves as the Chief of Special Projects for Pluang, a multi-asset class retail investment platform that caters specifically to us millennials and Gen Zs out there. He has 20 plus years experience in senior management roles across a highly diversified portfolio, including technology, media, and digital banking. And then joining us virtually, it gives me great pleasure to introduce His Excellency Bapak Mahendra Siregar, the Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia. Bapak Mahendra has a distinguished career in public service. He has served as Indonesia's ambassador to the United States of America. He has served as Vice Minister of Finance, Vice Minister of Trade, a Chairman and CEO of Indonesia Exim Bank, and the Deputy Coordinating Minister for Economic Affairs. I would then like to also welcome Mr. Mike Bracken joining us virtually. Mike Bracken is the founding partner at Public Digital, a digital transformation consultancy that helps organizations adapt to the internet era. Prior to that, he was appointed Executive Director of Digital for the UK government and also served as the UK's Chief Data Officer in 2014. He was also awarded a CBE. Very warm welcome to you, Mike. And then last but certainly not least, we're joined by Mr. Abhishek Singh, who is the President and CEO of the National E-Governance Division in India's Department of Electronics and Information Technology. He has additional roles as the MD and CEO of the Digital India Corporation and the CEO of MyGov. In his role in the National E-Governance Division, he coordinates projects related to Digital India, Digital DigiLocker, and Geoinformatics. Mr. Singh completed his Master of Public Administration from the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. Thank you, Mr. Singh. It's great to have you. Well, there we go. Those are our panelists for tonight. And I'd like to start off by asking the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs. Your Excellency, digital transformation is one of the three key priority areas of Indonesia's G20 presidency. It is also the only Y20 track, which we are part of, digital transformation, that is identical to those three G20 priorities. So what I want to ask you, Your Excellency, is do you think this is justified? Why is digital transformation such an important topic, especially for international cooperation?
Thank you, Neil. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Your Excellency, I think we can't hear you at the moment. I think our audio team will do their best to make sure we can hear you soon.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. Thank you,
Okay.
Your Excellency. You may proceed.
Thank you, Neil, for the opportunity to the committee and Y20. I think it's very relevant for the youth is because the digital transformation is providing the opportunity that has never been heard in the past, in the sense that the start business of the low capital amount, which is of course the most characteristic of business carried out by young people. The second one is the opportunity for more innovations can be done by the youth. The youth do not have to be the workers only, but could also become the job providers, employers, and of course the investors. So these are new possibilities that could be done strategically by the youth. And the third, this is an opportunity for the youth employer, creator, innovator to be part of the national and global value chain. And I think this is very key to engage the possibilities of any business be part of the national and global value chain. Now, while this is very important opportunities, I would like also to alert us on the challenges. I'm very worried that we will face a turbulent. We are seeing the process of deglobalization. While most of the advancement of the digital sector was supported or happened during the peak or the accelerated globalization period, but now I think we start seeing the process or the counter process of globalization called deglobalization. First, it was caused by the pandemic, COVID-19, mostly by the lockdown. But now, I think we also see the impact of the geopolitical tension happening today. That very affect the global value chain in tech sector, in all parts. In hardware, software, apps, many other creative, innovative. The second one, we are no longer seeing the low interest phenomenon in the world, which contributed significantly to the possibility of investment. To the digital and tech. As we know, many of the tech sector investments are not necessarily based on the bottom line or profitability or the margin, but mostly done in relation to valuation. The higher cost or capital would prevent this from continuing. So this is why the G20 this year is very critical. We had a successful organization of the foreign minister meeting 2 weeks ago, and finance minister banker meeting last week in Bali. But in terms of consensus, we still need to work harder. Because this could be our opportunity to save globalization in the form that we know, as well as multilateralization. Let me stop there. Thank you.
Your Excellency, thank you very much. I think you've touched on, just the global climate, where you talked about deglobalization, about increase in geopolitics disruption, and those are realities we have to deal with. And sticking with international policy, I want to throw it over to Monica. So Monica, due to the rapid growth of innovation in technology and application thereof, very often the regulatory frameworks just can't keep up. The rules keep changing. So what do you think are the biggest threats and risks moving forward? And how should G20 countries harmonize their frameworks to mitigate these type of risks?
Yeah, thank you, Neil. First of all, I would like to welcome the Y20 delegates from 19 plus countries. Welcome to Indonesia. Welcome to Jakarta. It's really a pleasure to be talking here with so many youth. I really feel like I'm an old dinosaur, but or at best like a sandwich generation. Going back to your question, Neil. So I think the main reason for undertaking digital transformation is perhaps like productivity gains. But as many studies and many observers found, is that there could be like potential negative consequences of digital transformations on the overall productivity distribution. So just let me cite some numbers and figures. In 2016, for example, the top 1% of the income distribution owns about like half of the global wealth. And in the last 2 years, 99% of the income of people in the bottom of the income distribution, their income has shrunk, while the richest 10% in the income distributions has income that is doubling. And 10 of the 10 richest people are in fact like technology titans. And the pandemic has also compounded this digital divide, as a World Bank survey shows that during the pandemic, smaller firms were being hit harder than larger firms, and they were less likely to receive policy support. And at least in East Asian countries, smaller firms were also less likely to adopt more advanced digital technologies to be able to survive the pandemic. And also like we know, like children from poor households have less access to online learning during the pandemic. So we've been seeing this phenomenon of digital divide, and on top of that, there are also this there are ways in which digital transformations has also widened economic inequality. There are also like 3 ways where inequality has been widening through digital transformations, including displacement effects, where labor has been displaced by machines and automation, and also premature deindustrializations, where developing countries with comparative advantage in labor-intensive industries has been impacted through lower manufacturing employment growth. And also there skill-biased technological change in which digital transformation benefits more educated workers than lower educated workers. And besides these digital divides, there are also the darker sides of digital technologies, including exploitations of individual data privacy, infodemic, where we receive so much information, but we don't know which one is fake and which one is true. And also political polarizations, partly because of the more personalized and more targeted news and information that we receive. And there are also issues on cybersecurity. Competition in digital era is also very complex, partly because of the network effects that naturally leads to market concentration and natural monopoly. And these issues are partly because there's a lack of international rules and standards. And this is where G20 can come in actually to intervene to establish these international norms and standards in the digital sector. And
thank you, Monica. That's,
yep.
I think you've really, it's very sobering because we need to know the realities of what exactly digital transformation will mean. You've talked about the digital divide, which is something that in our track we've really touched on a lot. And I want to bring in Mr. Singh right now, because I think he can really weigh in on India's experience of a really remarkable and inclusive digital innovation in the public sector. So Mr. Singh, studying India's public sector transformation, I almost can't quite believe how many people have access to internet, have access to public services. It's quite amazing. So just how has India managed to scale up a digital government and digital public goods so quickly in a country as complex and large as India? And how does your policy environment keep pace with these rapid changes?
See, thank you for giving me this opportunity. It's a great platform. It's indeed heartening to listen to the previous speakers. When it comes to India, like our digital transformation story is well known, but there was a reason because of which we did that. As we all know, we are 1.3 billion people, and we are cut across 22 languages, several states, all across the country. And if you have to offer public services to each citizen, there is no other option but to go digital. So when we started the journey, the intent was to build public digital platforms, which would become the basic building blocks of building services on top of it. So we built the identity platform because identity was seen to be a big problem, which was not allowing people to access financial services. And without an identity, a digital identity, it was very difficult to get food rations, subsidies, education, and a lot of money was being wasted in trying to reach the right beneficiaries. So in 2010, we started building the Aadhaar platform, and today we have more than 1.3 billion UID numbers issued, which are biometric identity, and they become the foundation for offering all services. Similarly, another issue was digital payment. How do we ensure that people are able to get whatever money is due to them through subsidies or through grants directly into their bank accounts without going through the route of checks and others? So based on the Aadhaar platform, the digital, the direct benefit transfer, the cash transfer system was built up. And then we also built up what we call UPI, the Unified Payment Interface, which brings all banks and financial institutions on one platform. And today it is possible to do even a small value transaction amounting to 10 rupees, which is like 1/7 of a dollar, from one person to the other without needing the bank account number or IFSC, to the mobile and Aadhaar. And with that, one is able to do small ticket digital transfer payments without any user charges. And today, because of that innovation, we account for almost 40% of the entire digital payment transactions globally. Then we also built a document exchange, a document wallet, which allowed citizens to keep their documents in a digital format on their wallet in their phone. And that allowed them to share documents to other authorities without requiring any paper documents or PDF documents. So whether it's the income tax records, whether it's academic certificates, or whether it's health records, whether it's driving licenses or ND certificates, all of it is digitally available on a wallet. And we also built up what we call an API bridge, API Setu, which is similar to the X Roads project of Estonia, which allows easy interchange of information and data between various government data systems. And based on these basic building blocks, we are building similar public digital platforms for offering services in healthcare, education, agriculture. For want of time, I would not go into the details, but we have given all details about what we call the India Stack on a portal called indiastack.global, which lists all the products that we have contributed, that you are contributing to the global public digital goods repository. And any country or any wanting to study these projects, or want to learn from them, or want to adopt them, customize them, they can get the codes of open source projects from the GitHub repository. The links are given there, as also get in touch with our teams to build that. So it has been a transformational journey, at the same time very challenging journey, because again, digital inclusion becomes a very big challenge in a country like India. So we also had a strategy for having common service centers, kiosks, telecenters, through which people who do not have access to a smartphone or a device or a computer, or do not have access to connectivity, or do not have the skill sets to navigate a website or a portal, could go to a kiosk like a cyber cafe, which is run by an entrepreneur, go there, access services, and get them by paying a service fee. So this has all led to a huge adoption of digital services. We have followed the principle of mobile first, and worked a lot on the UI UX on building simple solutions so that more and more people can adopt it. And the other facet has been that enabling services in multiple languages.
Thank you so much, Mr. Singh. So sorry to cut you off. No, I think what you've mentioned about India's journey is that, the inclusivity agenda is right front and center. And I think that's very, very valuable. Staying with the government, I want to turn to Mr. Bracken. Mr. Bracken, you were a co-founder of the UK government's GDS, the Government Digital Services, which was tasked with the incredible mandate of transforming the provision for online public services. Now, Mr. Bracken, I struggled to teach my grandparents how to use WhatsApp. So where do you even start when you're trying to completely rewire the way a complex organization like the British government works? What are some of the biggest policy organization and cultural challenges of digitization in your experience?
Thank you, Neil. There are many challenges, and I'd say the first one is the challenge of delivery. The primary way to change a policy-driven organization is via delivering services so good that everybody wants to use them. Because by and large, policy communities in many countries, not India, I would hasten to add with Abhishek on the call, the intent is good, but the delivery is often lacking. So we created services so good that everybody wants to use them, very simple. And the brand we created, gov.uk, is still our primary digital brand for a country of 70 million people. The challenge that, one of the challenges we run into early on was the challenge of permission, where policy groups would say, well, hang on, before you do anything, can you seek permission from lots and lots of people? And we had the backing of the Prime Minister and the Minister for the Cabinet Office, which is our central financial ministry. And we were able to keep delivering and move quicker than many of the policy functions who would like to have 1-2 year discussions before action was taken. And the biggest reflection for me, now I spend my time with governments all over the world, is that the governments that empower their teams, including policy, that have engineers and developers, will deliver more quickly to the pressing problems that all governments face, whether that be COVID or climate change or economic disruption. And so the learning for me is to really double down on fast-moving teams who are focused on delivering services that users want to use, that's businesses and individuals, rather than satisfying the increasing complexity designed by policy officials. And in the UK, we have a lot of those.
Yeah, I mean, governments are complex things. And I think, yeah, adapting an agile mindset, a startup mindset to the government is quite new. And yeah, I think in your case, it's been very successful. Talking about startups, I'd like to move to the startup on the stage, Baroni. Now, Baroni, I want to know that, so this is the second time you've been on a digital transformation talk show stage. Am I correct? So Baroni was at the pre-summer talk show in Lombok in April of this year. Now, a lot has changed in the global economy since April. So what I would like to ask you, Baroni, is what are these recent trends in the economy, the downturn, the high inflation, how does that affect the digital industry players, broadly speaking, and how can we be more resilient to such global macroeconomic shocks?
Thank you. Thank you, Neil. First, I'd like to thank the organizing committee for the opportunity. It's good to be here again. It's only been 3 months since we last discussed on digital transformation, and yet so many things have changed. Let me just recap on a bit of current updates. While the world is still recovering from the pandemic, we see increasingly complex challenges in the global economic environment. The conflict in Ukraine has caused major supply chain disruptions, rising global commodity prices, especially in energy and food, and also the subsequent tightening of monetary policies in efforts to fight off inflation. We also see that the US has recently announced its June CPI data at 9.1%, a record high in the past 40 years. Combined together, these are very, very alarming developments and will have direct impacts on vulnerable and low-income countries around the world. A World Bank report in June highlights that the looming threat of stagflation could lead to a global downturn and financial crisis. Now, in the meantime, the digital industry, startups in particular, has also been hit pretty hard by the hike in interest rates and fears over inflation. For many of us, winter is here. On the capital supply side, there have been intense calls for cost efficiency measures to ensure survivability. The theme is no longer about growth. Only those with proven market traction and a clear path to profitability will survive. Most startups that have been able to offer very low fees to their consumers may no longer be able to do so. And this would have significant impacts on the demand side in terms of customer expectation. So it is indeed a very challenging period for all of us. You know, amidst all this, we are reminded of what the co-founder of Google, Sergey Brin, once said. Scarcity breeds clarity. It focuses minds, forcing people to think creatively and rise to the challenge. And this was said back in 2008, and it still holds true today. So we're still hopeful that what is happening is a transitory phase. Things will get tougher before they get better. And in the end, hardship forges a new breed of technopreneurs. So we hope that the digital industry will prove its resilience and rise up once again to play even more important roles in future economy for all of us. Thank you.
Baroni, very, very true words. And I think, isn't that exactly what the G20 mantra is for this year, is build back stronger, build back together. And now I want to pivot the discussion a bit back to youth. And Maudi, among the many accolades and the roles that you play, you've also got a master's degree in education. So I want to ask you, what can G20 countries do to upskill and reskill their populations to make sure that they're resilient to the changes of digital transformation?
Thank you for the question. Hello, everybody. Good evening, Y20 delegates. It's such a pleasure to be here, sitting here alongside such distinguished speakers. It is definitely an honor. So back to your question, I will say that when it comes to digital transformation, and I like the word resilient, we really must not be thinking about a single technological fix or like a one-size-fits-all. And I really think that it's more of a social and gradual learning process, and it will inevitably involve many stakeholders, and it also has to meet the objective of meeting the specific needs of a country. Having said that, I do think forums like the G20 is so valuable in that it enables knowledge transfer and we get to share best practices. And one of that is that it's been suggested that for every dollar invested in information and communications technology, that should be matched with a $4 or $5 investment in process improvement and training. So that's where upskilling and reskilling comes into play. How can countries create, facilitate, and cultivate human capital that could leverage on these investments? And I think about it in terms of two goals. Countries should care about building digitally literate citizens, and secondly, a digitally competent workforce. And that could be achieved through a variety of means. Formal education is perhaps a conventional approach. And we're not just talking about digital literacy here, but we're actually talking about digital literacy. And what I mean by that is not just the use of internet, but critical thinking, analytical thinking, the ability of young people to evaluate and analyze and take in information without taking it at face value. And in terms of upskilling and reskilling, there are a lot of ways that this can be done. Vocational training, on-the-job training, and even within formal education, Indonesia has a very interesting policy, and it's called Campus Merdeka, or like the free campus, and it's basically a high-quality apprenticeship program for students, and this allows for occupational training, and I think this is really important because education should no longer just center around just memorization and knowledge, but also how we can actually apply them in the workforce. And this kind of links into that point around resiliency, whereby I do think it is time that we care about the foundational skills when it comes to education, because it truly will translate and we'll be able to adapt with the very, very rapidly moving technological advancements.
Maudi, I think that's very good, approaching at a foundational level, like you mentioned, the critical thinking skills. It's not all just coding and the technical skills, but broadening it out, and I think that's very useful. I'd like to circle back to the Vice Minister. So, Your Excellency, you're obviously involved in the highest level of G20 strategy and decision making. Could you briefly walk us through some of the concrete agenda in the G20 pipeline that can help advance youth to better participate and benefit equitably from the digital economy and beyond?
First of all, there are three priorities of Indonesian presidency. There is the digital transformation, the energy transition, and the reform of global health architecture. And of course, within these other two priorities, the energy transition and global health architecture, we also have a lot of digital transformation aspect. So basically, if we talk about the digital transformation, it's overarching priority because it really covers the whole three. With regard to the agenda of the digital transformation, the first one would be on the connectivity and post-COVID recovery. The second one would be on digital skills and digital literacy. And the third one is on the cross-border data flow and data free flow with trust. I prefer not to elaborate it further because of the limited time we have. Thank you.
And something that you identified, and that even with people that I've talked to in my local context, in my regional context, has seen as an issue. And this is that there isn't enough visibility in the economic statistics for understanding the economic impacts of digital transformation. So how could the G20 deliver a better way to monitor and evaluate the impacts of digital transformation and its effects, both negatively and positively?
So I very much agree with you, Neil, that we're still lacking regulatory framework, I guess, to be able to see digital economy and the value of digital economy on our statistics. Just as an example, the current conceptual treatment of the systems of national accounts worldwide only treats or only recognizes transactions in terms of monetary terms. And this is not the case in digital economy, because we know that goods and services in the digital economy could be transacted freely, right? And then another example is that there's no dedicated product and industry classification to identify internet platforms and associated services. which make it for us economists really difficult to measure the values of digital economy. So a lot of us ended up like citing the Google and Temasek and Bain's report instead of like being able to really calculate and analyze the values of digital economy. So now what has the G20 has done and what we could do more at the G20 in order to be able to make digital economy more visible in our statistics. So during the 2020 Saudi Arabian G20 presidency, the G20 member countries have agreed on a set of indicators on how to measure job skills and growth within the digital economy sector. And also they agreed on the definition of digital economy. How to define digital economy. But I think what we need to do more is not only measuring the size of digital economy, but also measuring the impacts of digital economy. And I think we have a big challenge here. I mean, the big elephant in the room is that when you try to measure the size of digital economy and the impacts of digital economy, you do need data. And I don't think if anyone here has an answer of who should collect and own data that has been like rampantly collected from us individuals with or without our awareness, then yeah, please tell me who should actually collect and own data. And in this digital era, data is money, data is power, data is influencing how we behave. Data is influencing the events that are happening around us and even our future. And I'm not sure if I can say that I know the future that I want, because I think the future that will be are being sort of like, quote unquote, like manipulated, by whoever's has data about our behaviors and events around us. And I think what the question that we need to ask ourselves is whether we are being a subject in this digital transformation process or we are being an object in this digital transformation process. So I really think that G20, in this G20 summit and through Y20 maybe, we really need to come up with like a strategy how to really measure the impacts of digital transformation, because otherwise it's going to be too late, like climate change, in order to bend the moral arc of digital transformation towards good.
Very relevant, Monica. I think, data is power in today's age, and the questions on who should have that power is one that, we don't know yet, and it's a good question that we should all be asking ourselves. But Ronnie, I'd like to throw it over to you, and so talking about the company that you work for, Pluang is a multi-asset investment platform. So I want to find out, we've been talking about disruptions to skilling, to reskilling, about jobs, about the digital economy. So what I'd like to ask is, how can digital financial services adoption translate into welfare and economic growth? What do you think government and private sectors can do to further boost that growth, especially after what you've told us about the uncertainties of the global economy and political system?
Right, thank you. Yeah, let me try to answer that question by relating to some of the experiences that we've had at Pluang, right? So at Pluang, we focus on the mission, which is to democratize access to wealth management in easy and affordable manners through a single digital platform. We have nearly 7 million users, and of recent, we have seen a growing number coming from the outer islands and provinces. We also strengthen our partnership with other major digital ecosystems to expand on the distribution channels as we push for broader adoption. Now, in terms of the data, right, so there's this IMF study in 2021 which basically derives data from 52 developing countries. And it concludes the positive impacts of digital financial services adoption on economic growth. It's proven to address gaps in supply of traditional finance, resulting in a more competitive landscape, which ultimately benefit the end users. This study actually used data from 2011 to 2018, and it demonstrates that digital financial inclusion could boost economic growth by up to 2.2%. Now, this is very interesting, of course, but to harness the full potential, there needs to be closer collaboration between public and private sectors. And this will particularly involve three key areas. One, access to infrastructure. Secondly, digital and financial literacy. And thirdly, improving the quality of institutions. So as an industry player, we work closely together with the various regulatory stakeholders. Through active participation in associations like the AFTEC, we build on proper frameworks for the industry centered around governance, risk management, and compliance. And this helps mitigate concerns on consumer protection, especially over issues of cybersecurity, frauds, scams, and misuse of funds for illicit activities. We also continue to educate the public on the merits and risks of financial technologies. To that end, we've expanded our public education programs in partnership with the Y20. We recently signed an MOU with an alumni association of one of the oldest local universities here. It has an active community members of around 500,000 people. And in the past month, we also hosted a series of financial literacy classes involving the regulators, public figures, and the national media. And we're very happy to receive direct support in many of these initiatives directly from the organizing committee of Y20, especially the Y20 co-chair, Michael Sianipar. And yeah, so these are just some of the on-the-ground programs of the digital transformation agenda that we're working together to implement.
And I think that public partnership, that wide-ranging coalition of people working towards digital inclusion, I think that's very merited, and I think that's the way it can be an example for other countries and other companies as well. Mr. Singh, a key focus of the digital transformation track that I've been involved with at this Y20 is increasing youth agency in digital policymaking. Now, you're also the CEO of MyGov, which is the Indian government's citizen engagement platform. Can you tell me a bit more about how that works? What has your experience as CEO showed you about both the challenges and the opportunities for increasing youth participation and civic engagement in policymaking?
See, the intent of MyGov, when it was set up around 7-8 years back to the 14, was to be a bridge between citizens and governments. Because very often in democracy, we always say that government is of the people, by the people, for the people. But when do the people get to play a role in policy making or governance? Once during elections, but what happens in between elections? So what MyGov does is that it provides a platform wherein citizens can contribute to governance and policy making by giving their inputs and suggestions with regard to various laws which are being made, various rules which are being notified, or various policies which are being made. So for example, when we had the national education policy being made, we had consultations in which millions of stakeholders, students, teachers, parents took part and gave their suggestions with regard to what they want the policy to be like. And all these suggestions which are received are then analyzed, bucketed, then shared with the concerned ministry or the department which is driving it, and then the policies are made. So it becomes like a very vibrant portal where citizens are able to speak up for that. So when the budget is being formulated, what do the citizens want from the budget? Like last year for the union budget, we had more than 40,000 suggestions that came in, and around 94 of them became actually the part of the union budget. So that brings the citizens closer to the government. And another thing that we do is that we also do a lot of information dissemination, because very often the way the government functions, sometimes citizens are not aware of what is the reason for particular decision which the government has taken, or sometimes even to interpret the bureaucracies that goes into drafting of orders, rules, schemes, that also is not understood very well by citizens. So what MyGov does is that it demystifies governance. It translates the communication, government communications, into simple, easy to understand language through infographics, through short videos, through reels, and then shares it on all our platforms, whether it's our web portal or our mobile app or on the social media channels. We are one of the most heavily followed social media channels in government in India, and we engage a lot of people with, whether it's Instagram for engaging with the youth, or LinkedIn with engaging with professionals, or Facebook or Twitter, or we have a host of Indian short video platforms on which we share our content. So primarily it's enabling participative governance, bringing citizens closer to the government, and ensuring the right information reaches to the citizens. It played a very active role in the COVID-19 pandemic also for driving behavioral change. And what we've observed is that the segment of population which is the most active, almost 70% of our engagement comes from people in the age group of 18 to 35. So India is a young country, but in that also the youth are taking active part in that, and that brings them, that involves them with the policy making, governance, and that helps India also become a more representative democracy than it would have otherwise been.
Is a term that stayed with me, and I think I'll remember that. Mr. Singh, I'd like to give you the opportunity if you'd like to leave now. I know you've got other engagement. Thank you so much for staying with us. Really appreciate your company.
It was very engaging, and look forward to getting the proper video so that whatever I have missed, I will follow it up. It has been really, really engaging and great insights. Thank you and well done. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Now, our last individual question for tonight is to Maudi. Now, Maudi, in 2018, you published a book, Dear Tomorrow, and it had a beautiful section on the double-edged sword of our always online culture, what millennials and Gen Zs, the reality that we live in. So as a public figure and as someone with a really large social media following as well, how do you find that balance between staying online but also offline? And how do you think we can create safeguards and the precautions necessary on a governance level, on a personal level, to make sure that this digital transformation that we're advocating for is not detrimental to our mental health?
I think that's a wonderful question. And I still mirror my past sentiments in that, from my personal experience, digital transformation has definitely been a double-edged sword. You know, on my best days, it's become a powerful platform to reach as many people as possible, and I'm grateful for that. But on the other hand, it undoubtedly has had detrimental effects on my productivity and also my mental health. So I really, really think it's an excellent question, because so far, a lot of conversations around digital transformation has been around opportunities for young people, and I really think that this is also a big threat. And we talked a little bit about digital literacy, making sure that digital literacy is taught in schools. And I think we can go even a layer deeper. Not just the use of the internet and not just our ability to evaluate, but our ability to protect ourselves and protect our mental health in response to these digital advancements. And I think that's really important. So some ideas here would be to actually infiltrate into schools and get into the curriculum, you know, this idea of digital well-being and being able to equip students with the ability to protect themselves, to understand and to evaluate what they're seeing, and have almost digital wisdom to know when to go offline, when to and how to filter things. For example, it turns out, and I just found this recently, you can actually get rid of some of the algorithms on your social media. Some social media. But I found out about that recently, and that's been a game changer for me, because then I can choose not to be overly exposed to certain types of content than others. So I think making sure that we get that across and that young people know of these different tools to protect themselves is really important. And I think additionally, it's also important for institutions and the government to have a stance or to express their concern over this. I think that that will trickle down to change agents such as teachers and parents at home, and that could also be kind of a powerful protective mechanism and can create safe spaces for young adults growing up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maudi. Very digital wisdom. I'm going to remember that. That's a very good term. So we're just about to close off our talk, and I just have one question, a quick fire round for all the panelists here. And just one thing, I want to shift the agency back to youth, not on a multilateral level, not on a broad scale, but on a personal level of agency. So how can young people today, if there's one piece of advice that you could give them, be prepared to manage and still equally benefit from this new age brought upon by the fourth industrial revolution? Just one example, one tip from each of you. Monica, let's start with you.
I think my answer, if I can give one additional suggestion, is on intergenerational leadership, because I think many high-level positions right now are being filled by people from Generation X and baby boomers, who are who don't adopt and adapt digital technologies as much as the digitally native Gen Y, Z, and the emerging Alpha generations. And they have less understanding about digital technologies, and let alone like how to regulate these new digital technologies. So humility in leadership, each generation should know their own strengths and weaknesses, as well as their unique and irreplaceable role in terms of policy making. For example, Generation X, like myself, has to be able to tap into the wisdom of older generations, but at the same time tap into the innovative and creative talents and energy of the youth.
Yeah, that generational pact idea is very key. Your Excellency Bapa Mahendra Sirigar, if we can have your thoughts on one tip for young people that they can make in their lives to benefit from digital transformation.
Well, thank you. I think despite the downside risk that we have discussed tonight, I still believe that the solutions that come up from addressing this risk would be more, I would say, powerful. So the overall or the net benefit would be still a much bigger gain. Yeah? Not suggesting that the risk is negligible, but I think it should not be perceived as stopping the youth from going forward in addressing this issue. But on the other hand, if I can convey through this meeting, this Y20 meeting, a message to your respective governments, to do its utmost to see the G20 this year successful, because the risk of not having it successful is very big. Pak Ronnie earlier used the term winter is here. I would use even a more threatening terminology. If it fails, the perfect storm is coming. Thank you.
Very key words, and something I hope that will drive us all in drafting the communique to adhere to. Maudi, if I can press you in 20 seconds, one way that the youth today can make a change.
20 seconds, wow. I'm going to say that I think youth today should lead with curiosity. I think we cannot afford to stop learning, given just how quickly paced the world is going. Even from my own personal experience, I feel like I've seen a gazillion iterations of every technology I've been exposed to. And then, again, the world is changing all the time. Everyone on the panel has said it. So we just have to keep being curious, keep being updated with whatever's going on, and actually, try to care.
Excellent. Baroni, would you like to add a few things, maybe a few choice words, 20 seconds, 10 seconds?
Well, probably just few words. So embrace uncertainties, move forward boldly.
Short and sweet, that's perfect. Well, everyone, I hope you've enjoyed this discussion. I found it very insightful, and I think it's really given us a whole scope of the issues that we shouldn't be oblivious to with digital transformation. It is a double-edged sword, like Maudi said, and finding ways to manage that disruption and put youth at the front as a driving force, as a co-creator, is something we should all strive to do. Can you all please help me join in a massive round of applause for all our panelists tonight? Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely evening.
Closer and get ready for some pictures here. Let me just count down from 3. Oh, before that, I'd like to also invite Pak Mahendra to join us as well. Maybe you could open your webcam once more to join this, or maybe he has left the Zoom session, unfortunately. All right, 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1, and once again, please give a big round of applause for our speakers and also our moderators who have done a great job. Partners who have made our journey possible, Y20 organizers from every country, G20 members, and we also wish our delegates to have fruitful discussions and negotiations ahead. And this event is hosted by Indonesian Youth Policy, supported by the provincial government of Dki Jakarta and Yogyakarta, and regional government of West Java province. The event is also sponsored by Pluang, Rotary, Bangsa Asia, Channel Foundation. State-owned enterprises of the Republic of Indonesia and the following state-owned enterprises, which are the driving forces of the country's economic growth. Wijaya Karya, thanks to also to Hutama Karya, BRI, InJourney, Jasa Marga, POS Indonesia, PT Adikarya Persero Tbk, Krakatau Steel, Pelabuhan Indonesia, Taspen, and the last but not least, ASDP Indonesia Ferry. And distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Bapak Ibu yang terhormat, please do not miss the 3rd and 4th talk shows, which will be talking about sustainable and livable planet, and also diversity and inclusion tomorrow at 7 p.m. Western Indonesia time. Would like to also inform you that you can visit the Y20 Expo virtually. Please kindly visit our virtual expo through y20-indonesia.org and click Virtual Expo button. And finally, on behalf of the Y20 co-chairs and the organizing committee from Indonesian Youth Diplomacy, we again thank you for attending the welcome dinner and second talk show of Y20 Indonesia Summit 2022. My name is Rahma Aliana. I'm signing off. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening to you all, and thank you very much. Good night.
The Ministry of State-Owned Enterprises of the Republic of Indonesia
Ongoing major transformation has led Indonesia's state-owned enterprise on the path towards stronger corporate governance, profitability, and resilience.
The Ministry and SOEs are committed to empowering our future workplace and youth employment, advancing our digital transformation, keeping our planet livable for generations to come. And we are empowering our diversity.
Let us all drive our communities, our economy, our nations, and our world forward.
Gue mau investasi aja.
Tapi nggak ngerti caranya.
Jangan khawatir. Kamu bisa investasi beragam aset sekarang nggak pakai ribet. Semua ada di aplikasi Pluang. Betul, bisa nabung emas, reksadana, indeks saham Amerika, dan aset lainnya. Hanya dengan 3 klik, kamu bisa investasi praktis, aman, dan berpotensi lebih untung. Kapan lagi? Peluangmu sekarang.
Wika bukan hanya hadir, tetapi turut menorehkan sejarah panjang pembangunan Indonesia, serta tidak ragu mereposisi diri menjadi BUMN yang siap berkompetisi di kancah internasional. Baktiku untuk Wika, baktiku untuk Indonesia.
We dedicate each drop of this sweat to you, to the people of Indonesia. We will continue to give our best to the nation. We will always be eager to develop the country. Innovation for solutions.
This is the first step to bring smile. BRI, Pegadaian, and PNM strides on, bringing changes as one entity, bringing you closer to us, and answering all your needs to bring smile. This is our answer that brings you to grow and brings meaning to everyone's smile.
Selamat datang di sebuah pengalaman perjalanan baru Indonesia bersama InJourney. Terbang bersama kami untuk melihat pariwisata Indonesia, sirkuit internasional, bentang alam, ragam atraksi budaya, produk lokal asli Indonesia, warisan budaya, keamanan dan kenyamanan. InJourney membawa keramahan Indonesia ke dunia.
Tumbuh kembang kami juga memberikan makna dan arti. Betapa pentingnya peran kami yang tak pernah lepas dalam hadirkan konektivitas. Karena kami yakin dan mampu untuk terus lewati batas dan merajut konektivitas. Indonesia.
Mereka yang tak pernah padam untuk ikut serta dalam membangkitkan perekonomian Indonesia. Dan kini, mereka yang tak pernah lepas untuk selalu berperan dalam membantu dan membangun negeri demi Indonesia yang lebih maju dan demi memberikan pelayanan yang terbaik. Karena mereka adalah Pos Indonesia.
Siapapun bisa mengajar, tapi tak semuanya bisa menjadi guru. Semua orang bisa menolong sesama, tapi tak semuanya bisa mengemban amanah. Siapa saja bisa menjadi abdi negara, tapi belum tentu mengabdi dengan dedikasi.
Dengan jaminan pasti dan layanan terbaik, Taspen hadir untuk Anda, pahlawan bangsa.